next one, strategy. Well, one of the key points when you're discussing missions is which future you're talking about and for whom. So what is a mission success, actually? Articulating a desirable future requires engagement and collective strategy. So why? I mean, we saw some of these things like the accelerator type 1 and type 2, transformer 1 and 2, for different types of mission-oriented policies. The missions are clearer or less clear, and the stakes are less clear or more clear, and the stakeholders are less clear and more clear, depending on which mission-oriented policy. So it's clear that not only having the mission goal, but anticipating what mission success would actually be is needed. And so collective strategy making is desirable because your utopia might be my dystopia. And to create this kind of collective understanding of what mission success would be is important. We come back to other aspects of this, like legitimacy, later. And of course, the mission success is in the future, and well, there are a variety of pathways. So one pathway or many pathways. A variety of pathways can be envisaged, and how to maintain multiple routes whilst aligning policies. I mean, in particular for transformer mission-oriented policies, how many pathways do you want to maintain to be able to achieve success? You still have to try to maintain a portfolio. So, of course, there are many routes. They may converge or diverge. And so an element of this is necessary in the strategy behind mission-oriented policy. So collective strategy articulation is needed. So co-designing the mission. So co-designing the mission aim and what the problematic actually is. So I'm re-showing this quadruple helix. That's one approach, and innovation ecosystem is another. But looking at the different types of stakeholders that could be involved. So whether accelerator or transformative missions require collective strategy making, articulating desirable futures and identifying the capabilities required for achieving those mission goals. These are important to identify before you develop your mission-oriented policy. And such a process would need to be very inclusive and involve relevant stakeholders. We see some of this happening in Horizon Europe around the mission areas, to a greater and lesser extent, depending on which mission area you're focusing on. And it should draw on different sources of strategic intelligence. I'll come back to that later. But of course, identifying and enrolling appropriate stakeholders is a key challenge in itself. This isn't easy. We'll come back to that again later. So collective strategy articulation should include a stock-taking exercise in which existing policies are identified and relevant stakeholders are also identified. Clearly articulated goals should be defined. We argue collectively, depends again how collectively that is based on the type of mission, as we mentioned earlier. And these missions should be measurable and should have binding timeframes. That's the whole point and strength and difficulty of mission-oriented policies, is that they have to be measurable and they must have a binding timeframe. So the nature of missions will also most likely mean that the relative role of STI policy may be reduced, putting other policy domains and other policy instruments such as regulation in a more prominent position when you're dealing with mission-oriented research and innovation policy. This brings up challenges itself. So Ralf, would you like to take challenge 2?
Yes, happy to do so. Yes, I think previously it already became clear that one of the challenges in this whole mission orientation is actually a coordination challenge, because due to this cross-cutting nature of most missions, the conventional mechanisms of coordination across departments that most governments have established usually are not enough. Doug, you can take the next one, please.
Drink my water, sorry.
Yeah. And just already the next one, I would say.
This one?
And, yeah, perfect. Yeah, and And so what we are observing that normally in most countries, this mission orientation starts actually in ministries dealing with research policy and innovation policy in most cases. But once a very ambitious mission is actually being started, it becomes quite obvious that you have to actively coordinate and collaborate with the sectoral ministries. And now, in most countries, we know this is actually quite a challenge and not easy to do, because governmental departments tend to work in silos, tend to have a certain degree of competition, and so this needs to be actually addressed and dealt with in successful mission policy. Now, we don't know what the situation is within the regional government of the Lombardy region, but what we can say, at least from other subnational governments, is that usually subnational governments are like these silos, and the competition between different departments is not as strong as you can observe that at the national level. So I would say that there is a chance that the conditions for successful policy, mission policy at the regional level is probably a bit higher than at the national level. So good chances for Lombardy to take this idea up of the mission orientation. Next one, please. Yes. And the same is true. It's not only about working across departments within a government, but for many departments, it's actually not part of their daily routines to work closely with stakeholder groups and in a kind of a co-development and co-responsibility mode. What you normally see is more something that can be called like consultation and meeting with interest groups, things like that. Of course, governments are quite used to do that, but kind of this open approach to really collectively work on certain solutions and setting up a strategy is in many governments not really part of the daily routines, and needs to be established for successful mission policy. Next one, please. And what we also see that because of these silos we are observing in many governments, it seems that, depending on the situation we're looking at, but it seems that it might be worthwhile to think about setting up new arrangements of coordination and governance in order to take care of these mission policies. Now, the possibilities are manifold. It really depends on the political system and the administrative culture, of course, what is feasible. You could either be more hierarchical in a certain sense, kind of concentrating the responsibility of mission implementation at the head of the government. That would be a possibility, or you take it out of the established ministries and establish a kind of a new agency or a governmental body that is really specifically in charge of a certain mission. And of course, there are variants of these possibilities, but it seems that this might be something to take into consideration. Okay. Oh yeah, and kind of a key part of all this is that missions do not come for free, because of all these additional coordination necessities related to mission policy. These mission owners have to have sufficient capacities and capabilities to do all these things. All right, back to you, Doug.
Back to me. So challenge 3, reflexivity and learning. And I had in real time, because for really trying to achieve missions and to understand the contribution of mission-oriented policies and the activities of which they support, you really need to have some indication of where they're going and how well they're running. And so reflexivity and learning in real time. So while clear and binding mission goals need to be established at the beginning of any mission policy, a system for monitoring and assessment needs to be set up early on. Given the dynamic development of a mission, and also in view of changing conditions, new perspectives and perhaps revised goals will be needed. So missions need to be able to be flexible, to flexibly respond to such changes. So we need to incorporate reflexivity and understanding of how things are rolling in real time. So a key feature is to ensure reflexivity and learning over the course of mission implementation. So formative approaches seem very useful in this regard. So I'm going to give an example, only at the tip of the iceberg yet again. I have extra slides if you want to dig deeper. So this is a French national mission-oriented research and innovation program. It's called Cultiver et protéger autrement. So that means cultivating and protecting crops in another way. So research and innovation, so the mission is research and innovation for a zero pesticide agricultural system by 2050. So it's, I'll walk you through the origins of this, but you see it's different parts of different ministries are involved and a number of funding agencies and research agencies involved in this program. So it started with a cross-ministry initiative. So here we have the Ministry of Education, Higher Education, Research and Innovation, the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and the Ministry of Transitions, well, ecological transitions and solidarity. So the government confirms its ambition to reduce plant protection products by half by 2025 and to phase out glyphosate, for a majority of uses by the end of 2050. Now, this led to the initiation of a program called EcoFito 2. But there's a history. EcoFito 1 from 2008 aimed at a 50% reduction in pesticide use by 2018, and it failed spectacularly. It led to an increase in pesticide use. I mean, it didn't lead to it. I mean, effectively, there was an increase in pesticide use. So the question was, what was the efficacy of this policy? So looking back, lessons learned from the development of the policy and implementation of the policy, it was clear, and there was clear recognition that the achievement of this goal of 50% reduction in pesticide use by 2018, depended on systemic transformations in the agricultural production system itself. And so the whole initiative was, well, cross-ministry initiative was, can we create a mission-oriented approach focusing on transformation of the agricultural system? And I chose this example with a view to the region of Lombardy, which has, of course, a strong focus on agriculture and agricultural transformation. So to cut to the chase, 10 projects were funded. So these are projects, research and innovation projects, which run for 6 years, developing solutions, different types of solutions, very early stage solutions to reducing pesticides. So this is from dealing with seeds and seed management to sensors, to sense pests, so rather than use pesticides, anticipate on pests arriving using different types of sensors, and also other things like thinking about the whole ecosystem around the different plants and which factors are at play and how you can mobilize that to reduce pesticides. Okay, that's the research and innovation part. But the key interest for me about this project, this program, which is about, let's add it up, 20 million, 30 million euro. It's an example of one of the projects they do, programs they do. So it's the approach to steering the program and the projects through a reflexivity and strategy articulation support system. Now that's a mouthful, but I'll explain what that means. So the program includes a portfolio of activities to support reflexivity, and that's the understanding of the processes of research and innovation and the choices made by all involved. Strategy articulation in real time, the anticipation of what will be the outcomes, potential outcomes of your choices and of the projects, the program itself, to bring it back to the present and articulate strategies. So I'll walk you through this diagram on the right-hand side, which is the support system, the steering support system I mentioned. So at the top, we have a steering committee, which is the connection with the ministries themselves. It's a high-level meeting group, which which regularly discusses whether the mission that's already been identified is the right mission. Remember, we said about thinking about mission goals themselves. So every year, or a little bit less, every half year, it is planned that this group will meet to discuss the actual fundamentals of the mission itself. Then there is the program level management. And at that, you have coordination with similar international programs. So there's a committee of international research, coordination with national and public, private, and other organizations. So this is the ecosystem, the French ecosystem around agriculture and food production, including the whole value chain, so from farm to fork. And then, of course, there's the program management itself. So there's an animation team by a program direction committee for 6 years, which regularly meet and integrate all these different elements from the ministerial steering group with the different international and national insights. So that reflects on the program. There are also other elements: reflexivity, capacity building, and production of strategic intelligence. So in this program, there is a anticipatory impact assessment approach. What that means is, and I have extra slides if we have time later to go through it, what it means is they've incorporated in the program management itself, in the steering group itself, and also in each individual project, the attempt to build capacity to anticipate on the innovation journey of the research projects undertaken, reflect on the impacts that will be generated, and develop indicators to understand whether they are performing well and contributing to the mission. So this is building capacity within the projects and programs themselves. The publications and events, of course, this is a standard approach, but in this sense, it's used to create a dialogue between the different stakeholders in the ecosystem, but also to learn, to bring it back into the steering group itself. Communication is another element of this. The only reason it's disentangled is because of the methods they use to do it. And then there's Perspective 2050. So this is a foresight exercise led by foresight professionals to build scenarios of what mission success would be. And that deals with and interacts with many different stakeholders to build up these futures, alternative futures, and to think, well, if we backcast from those futures to the present, what are the decisions that have to be made? What are the support structures and potential interventions at the policy level that are needed to enable the innovation journeys coming from this research program? So the reason I'm sharing you this is how a mission requires or could benefit from steering through reflexivity and learning. So Ralf, I'll hand over to you. Challenge 4.
Great. Yes. Now, some of the things that have already been said will kind of pop up here again, but this legitimacy issue is we thought this is so important. We need to put a special emphasis on it, because one of the reasons why we think that looking at acceptance and legitimacy in terms of mission policy is so important, because an ambitious mission effectively intervenes into the very fabric of society. It affects behavior. It will contribute to the transformation of practices and institutions. So this is definitely something that will create winners and losers. And in a sense, it is a very political issue. Actually, it will generate controversy once it becomes clear what the mission will do and how it will approach the problems that will be addressed. So at least in democratically constituted societies, thinking about legitimacy of a mission-oriented policy is really key. And in many ways, we would argue this special emphasis on legitimacy and the politicization of mission of a certain policy is not very familiar to policymakers in the field of science, technology, and innovation policy, because compared to other policy areas, at least, controversies normally do not become as heated as, for instance, in social or pension policy, just to give an example here. So just to make the point, the legitimacy is important to think about how can we ensure high levels of support and acceptance in these policies. Maybe the next one. Doug already outlined brilliantly how important these strategic processes are, and it should also be clear when you go into these processes, they will be political, and they will be a very complex political negotiation process, and this is something a mission owner should be prepared to actually get involved in. Next one, please. Then, of course, this serious involvement of the relevant stakeholders that has been mentioned a number of times in this presentation today. But this is also a key element in actually ensuring higher levels of commitment of these actor groups and to mobilize these actor groups. Otherwise, you will run into situations if you don't involve them in an appropriate way that will say, "Well, I'm not part of this. This is not invented here," and as it is such an essential element of mission policy to build on the mobilization of different groups in society, this is a key thing to keep in mind. Next one, please. Yes, and also it seems to be very important to invest some thinking into how can we develop an attractive mission narrative. What is convincing and what is attractive as part of mobilizing support for a mission. Next one, please. And kind of a very important supporting element of all this is also to invest some thinking into your public communication activities that support and accompany mission policies. It is very important to send out clear and credible signals about what you're planning to do. Just one example from the Netherlands, which we thought was quite interesting. The government there was very clear in communicating to industry that they are planning a certain mission and to decarbonize a certain sector. And so the industry there basically had a choice: either we will get involved and try to work together with the government, or we will be out and they will just decide without us. So this communication part is also seems to be a key thing in developing successful mission policies. Okay, I think that was the list yeah. Okay, so back to you, I guess, Doug.
Yeah. So this is Ralf and Douglas's idea of some of the challenges, 4 key challenges for mission-oriented innovation policy. For sure, there are more. But you can see from the way we've been describing, these are all interlinked, and there are certain themes that come out from the crisscrossing of these four challenges. And so what we'd like to do in this last slide is to give some main takeaways and food for thought. So the food for thought on missions with a regional perspective. And so, okay, let's walk through them. So the first, defining regional missions has a proximity advantage. So for the regions, local stakeholders are easier to identify, and there are historical relationships from previous interactions. And problems are better understood because of the local nature. Co-creating missions, so defining desirable directions of research and innovation with a large range of stakeholders, we think is crucial for mission success. Now, so the degree of which co-creation takes place, definition and co-designing of missions is the question, but it depends on the different context and the culture of that region or nation. So acknowledgement that mission-oriented innovation policy is demanding from ministries, is demanding, and other public agencies. But in order to meet these challenges, the way policy making is conducted needs to be changed. Now, SDI policy is an integral part of achieving missions, but other policy areas will also play a large role. So close collaboration with other policy areas is essential. Now, regions may have an advantage, as we've said, in this respect. Ralf, I'm going to flick. You take over for the last ones.
Yeah, happy to do so.
Here we go.
Yeah, thank you. So we already mentioned the issues of capacities and capabilities on the side of the mission owners. And we can just put additional emphasis on this, how important that is. We've seen in other cases where ministerial department was or unit was supposed to implement 12 different missions, and they had a person power of two people there, and were responsible for 12 organizing and coordinating 12 missions. No way that can fly. So you do have to invest and think about what capacities and capabilities do you need to get this done. And yes, and I think this is also another key point that needs to be stressed. You to accompany such a mission policy, you have to also establish key performance indicators or some kind of monitoring system, just to really ensure that you are on track and that enables you to correct the way things are moving ahead in order to ensure mission success. And yes, this is also part of kind of the governments and the organizational parts of these mission policies. Make sure that there's a constant flow of information from the ground, what is happening in the missions, and that is fed back into the actual steering activities and the management of these missions. And I think that's the last one, right? That's one of the points I think we haven't explicitly talked about yet, but this is another observation also from a number of real mission cases out there. It is quite easy to establish a lot of expectation with your missions, stating that a certain industry will be carbon free within a certain time frame. And it is also right to be bold, but at the same time, watch out not to promise too much, because this can, of course, cause backlash and cause a lot of frustration on the side of the actors involved and of the general public, of course, if these promises are not being held.
Okay, and that's it. Thank you very much.